Growing up, I always felt like the extra piece in my own family. Not exactly unwanted, just convenient. My mom and my older sister were super close. They had this bond that I was never really part of. My sister got married young, had kids, and built this whole little life that my mom seemed to revolve around. And then there was me. Every few months, they'd plan these family trips, beach vacations, mountain cabins, theme parks, you name it. And every single time, I somehow didn't make the guest list. Instead, I'd get the same call. Hey, can you watch the house while we're gone? Oh, and don't forget to feed the dog and water the plants. At first, I didn't think much of it. I told myself it made sense. Someone had to stay behind, and I didn't have kids or a spouse, so I was free. But after a while, it started to sting, especially when they'd come back with stories, inside jokes, and hundreds of pictures I wasn't part of. It wasn't just about missing trips, it was about feeling like I wasn't really included in the family. There were times I hinted that I'd like to come along. I'd say things like, "That sounds fun," or "I've always wanted to go there." My mom would smile and say something vague like, "Maybe next time." But next time never came. Meanwhile, I'd be at home taking care of their responsibilities while they were out making memories. The worst part, it became expected, like it was just my role. And honestly, after years of that, something in me changed. I stopped asking. I stopped hoping. I just accepted that if I wanted to experience something, I'd have to do it on my own. So that's exactly what I started doing. I worked more hours, cut back on spending, skipped little luxuries here and there. It took a while, but eventually I saved up enough money to finally plan a real vacation, my vacation, and not just anywhere. I picked a place I knew would mean something, not just to me, but to my mom too. My mom has always had this dream of going to Scotland. She'd talk about it all the time, how she wanted to see the castles, walk through the old streets, and experience the history. It was one of those someday dreams she never actually made real, and I knew that. So when I finally had enough money saved up, I made a decision that was a little bold, maybe even a little petty. I booked a trip to Scotland, for myself. Now, I could have gone alone, but I didn't. I chose to take someone with me, someone who'd always been in my corner when no one else really was, my aunt. She's my mom's sister, and they don't get along at all. In fact, she's probably my mom's least favorite person in the family. They argue constantly, mostly because they're completely different. My aunt is independent, outspoken, and lives a pretty comfortable life. She's also always treated me like I matter. She was the only one who ever noticed how I was being left out. So when I told her about the trip and asked if she wanted to come, she didn't even hesitate. She said yes immediately. Everything was set. Flights, hotels, plans. For the first time, I was excited about something that was completely mine. Then, my mom found out. At first, she thought I was joking. When she realized I was serious, her reaction changed fast. Suddenly, she was interested. Suddenly, she wanted to be included. She started saying things like, "I've always wanted to go there," and "We could have such a great time together." Then came the part that really got to me. She asked me to take her instead of my aunt. Just like that. After years of leaving me behind, now she wanted a spot on my trip. I didn't even have to think about my answer. I told her no. Saying no to my mom wasn't easy, but it felt necessary. I didn't yell or argue, I just explained it calmly. I told her how I'd been left out of so many trips, how I was always the one asked to stay behind and take care of everything, how it made me feel like I wasn't really part of things. And I told her that this trip was something I planned for myself for once. She didn't take it well. She tried to guilt me, saying things like, "I'm your mother, and we could make memories together." But I stood my ground. I reminded her that she'd had plenty of chances to include me before, and she chose not to. So this time, I was choosing myself, and I chose my aunt. When the day finally came, I got on that plane feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Free. No responsibilities, no being the backup plan, no being the one left behind. Scotland was everything I hoped it would be. The landscapes were unreal. The castles felt like something out of a movie. The streets had this charm you can't really explain unless you're there. And the best part? I was actually there, living it, not just hearing about it afterwards. My aunt and I had an amazing time. We laughed, explored, and just enjoyed every moment. It felt like a real vacation, the kind I'd been missing out on for years. And yeah, I did something a little extra. I sent my mom updates every day, pictures of the places we visited, the food we tried, the views she always talked about wanting to see. I didn't do it to be cruel, but I'd be lying if I didn't say there was a small part of me that wanted her to understand what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. For once, she wasn't part of the experience. I was. And honestly, it felt good. Not because I was trying to hurt her, but because for the first time I finally chose myself instead of settling for whatever was left. And that changed everything. At first, my mom tried to act like it wasn't a big deal. "Oh, that's nice," she said when she heard about the trip, giving me a quick smile before turning back to whatever she was doing. But I've known her my whole life. I could tell that smile wasn't real. It was the kind of smile people give when they're trying to buy time, like they're waiting for more information before reacting. And I knew exactly what she was waiting for. She thought I was going to say, "You should come with me." But I didn't. I just kept talking about the plans, how long I'd be gone, some of the places I wanted to see, how excited I was. I mentioned the flights were already booked, the hotel was locked in, and that I'd finally get to see all the things I'd only ever seen in pictures. She stayed quiet longer than usual. That's when I realized something had shifted. For once, I wasn't on the outside of a trip. I wasn't the one staying behind. I wasn't being asked to take care of anything. I was the one going, and she wasn't part of it. Over the next couple of days, her curiosity started to grow, but it didn't feel supportive. It felt strategic. She started asking more detailed questions. "So where exactly are you staying? Did you already plan everything out? Is it just you going?" That last question lingered in the air a little longer than the others. I hesitated for a second, but then I answered honestly, "No, I'm going with Aunt Lisa." The reaction was immediate. Her whole expression changed, like a switch flipped. The slight curiosity disappeared, replaced with something sharper. Not quite anger, but definitely not happiness either. "With her?" she asked. There it was. That tone. Anyone who knew my family would have recognized it instantly. My mom and Aunt Lisa have never gotten along. Growing up, I remember their arguments more clearly than any family holidays. They're complete opposites. My mom likes control, routine, and keeping things close to home. My aunt is independent, outspoken, and does whatever she wants without asking anyone's permission. And if I'm being honest, I've always admired that about her. More importantly, she's always treated me like I matter. While everyone else seemed to overlook me, she noticed. She'd ask how I was doing, actually listen to my answers, and encourage me to do things for myself instead of waiting around for someone else to include me. So when I finally had the chance to take a trip like this, choosing her felt natural. But to my mom, it felt like a betrayal. She let out a short laugh, the kind that isn't really a laugh. "Wow," she said. "So you're taking her to Scotland." I didn't respond right away. I could already feel where the conversation was heading. Then came the questions, but they weren't really questions. "So you know I've always wanted to go there, right? I've been talking about Scotland for years. We could have gone together." Each sentence carried more weight than the last. I stayed calm. "I know," I said. "You've mentioned it a lot." She crossed her arms slightly, leaning against the counter. "So why didn't you ask me?" That question sat between us, and for a second I almost gave her the easy answer, something simple, something that wouldn't start an argument. But I stopped myself, because this wasn't just about keeping the peace anymore. It was about being honest. "Because you never asked me," I said. She frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you've taken a lot of trips. with my sister, her husband, the kids, all of you. And I was never included. I was the one staying behind, watching the house, taking care of things. Her expression tightened, like she didn't expect me to say that out loud. "That's not the same thing," she said quickly. "Those were family trips." I couldn't help but let out a small breath. "Exactly," I said. That word hit harder than anything else I could have said. For a moment, she didn't respond, and I could tell she was trying to come up with something to push back with. Finally, she said, "Well, it's not too late. You can still change it." I raised an eyebrow quickly. "Change what?" I asked. "The trip," she replied, like it was obvious. "You can cancel her ticket and I'll go instead, or we can all go together." There it was, the moment everything became crystal clear. After years of not including me, now she expected me to rearrange my plans for her. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not even frustration, just clarity. "I'm not changing anything," I said calmly. Her face fell slightly. "You're serious?" she asked. "Yeah," I replied. "Everything's already booked, and even if it wasn't, I wouldn't change it." That's when the guilt started. "I'm your mother," she said. "Don't you want to spend time with me?" I held her gaze. "I do, but that's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" she shot back. I paused for a second, choosing my words carefully. "It's about me finally doing something for myself, not being the one who gets left behind, not being the one who just fits into whatever's convenient." She didn't like that. I could see it all over her face. "You're being dramatic," she muttered. "Maybe, but it doesn't change how I feel." The room went quiet after that. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that feels heavy, like everything unsaid is still hanging in the air. From that point on, things were tense. She didn't bring up the trip as directly anymore, but the little comments started. "So I guess you and your aunt have everything figured out. Must be nice to just leave whenever you want. Hope someone's around to take care of things while you're gone." That last one almost made me laugh, because for once, it wasn't going to be me, and that realization, it felt different. It felt like things were finally changing.
The tension didn't magically disappear after that conversation. If anything, it settled into the house like a quiet storm that never fully passed. My mom stopped arguing directly, but the silence between us said more than any fight could. We talked when we had to, mostly about small, everyday things, but the trip hung in the background of every interaction. And for once, I didn't try to fix it. Normally, I would have backed down by then. I would have apologized just to keep things smooth, maybe even offered to change my plans a little. That's how it had always gone. I'd adjust, I'd compromise, I'd make things easier for everyone else. But this time, I didn't. I kept preparing for the trip. I double-checked my bookings, made a list of places I wanted to see, and even started packing earlier than I needed to. It wasn't just excitement. It was something deeper. It felt like I was protecting something important, like if I let my guard down, I might lose it. My aunt, on the other hand, made everything feel light. She'd call me just to talk about the trip, throwing out ideas like, "We have to see the Highlands," or "I heard the castles there are unreal." She wasn't just tagging along, she was genuinely excited to experience it with me. And that made a difference. No pressure, no expectations, just two people choosing to spend time together. The night before I left, my mom barely said anything. I was finishing up my packing in my room when she stood in the doorway for a moment. I noticed her, but I didn't say anything right away. I didn't know what she was going to say, or if she was going to say anything at all. Finally, she spoke. "So, you're really going?" It wasn't a question. It sounded more like she was still trying to process it. "Yeah," I said simply. Another pause. "All right," she replied, nodding slightly before walking away. That was it. No goodbye speech, no last-minute attempt to change my mind, just a quiet acceptance that things weren't going her way this time. And honestly, that moment stuck with me. Not because it was dramatic, but because it wasn't. For once, I didn't chase after her to make things okay. I just let it be. The next day, I left for the airport with my aunt, and from the moment we got there, everything felt different, lighter, like I had stepped into a version of my life where I wasn't tied down by expectations. On the plane, I kept looking out the window, not really thinking about anything specific, just taking it all in. I had waited a long time for something like this. Not just a trip, but the feeling of finally choosing myself. When we landed in Scotland, it didn't even feel real at first. Everything looked like something out of a movie. The buildings had this old, timeless feel to them. The streets were full of character, and even the air felt different, cooler, quieter, calmer. My aunt and I didn't rush anything. We walked through the city, stopped at random places, tried food we'd never had before, and just enjoyed being there. No strict schedule, no pressure to keep up with anyone else. For the first time, I wasn't catching up to someone else's plans. I was part of the plan. We visited castles that looked like they'd been frozen in time, stood on cliffs with views that didn't even look real, and wandered through streets that felt like they had stories in every corner. And yeah, I thought about my mom. A lot, actually. Not in a guilty way, but in a reflective way. Every place we went, I could hear her voice in the back of my mind talking about how much she wanted to see it someday. And that's when I made a choice. I started sending her pictures. At first, it was just one or two, a castle here, a landscape there, simple captions like, "This place is amazing," or "You'd love this view." She didn't respond right away, but I kept sending them. Every day, I'd share a little piece of the trip, the streets, the food, the scenery, everything. Not to rub it in, not to be cruel, but because I wanted her to see it, to understand it, to feel, even just a little, what it's like to watch something from the outside. After a couple of days, she finally replied. "They're beautiful," she texted. That was it. Short, simple, but it felt like something. As the trip went on, her responses stayed brief, but they came more consistently. A "wow" here, "that looks incredible" there. No complaints, no guilt, just acknowledgement. And strangely, that meant more than I expected. By the time the trip was coming to an end, I realized something important. This wasn't about getting back at her. It wasn't about proving a point or making her feel bad. It was about breaking a pattern. For so long, I had accepted being the one who stayed behind, the one who adjusted, the one who didn't get included. And this trip changed that. Not because of where I went, but because of the choice I made. When I got back home, things weren't magically perfect, but they were different. My mom hugged me when I walked in, something she didn't always do. She asked about the trip, actually listened to the answers, and looked through the pictures with real interest. It wasn't a huge transformation, but it was a start. And for me, that was enough. Because at the end of the day, the biggest change didn't happen in her, it happened in me. I stopped waiting to be included. I started creating my own place instead. And once you do that, it's really hard to go back.